Irma Ida Ilse Grese, born October 7th. 1923, Rechen, Free State of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, Germany. Died 13 December 1945, Hamelin, Germany. Was employed at the Nazi concentration camps of Ravensbrück and Auschwitz and was a warden of the women's section of Bergen-Belsen. Grese was convicted for crimes against humanity at the Belsen trial and sentenced to death. Executed at 22 years, 67 days of age, Grese was the youngest woman to die judicially under English law in the 20th century. She was nicknamed the Beast of Belsen, the Beautiful Beast, and Die Hyena von Auschwitz, the Hyena of Auschwitz. Background: Irma Grese was born to Alfred Grese, a dairy worker and a member of the Nazi Party from 1937, and Berta Grese. Irma Grese had 4 siblings. In 1936, her mother committed suicide. Grese left school in 1938 at the age of 14, owing to a combination of a poor scholastic aptitude, bullying by classmates, and a fanatical preoccupation with the League of German Girls Bund, Deutscher Mädel, a Nazi female youth organization of which her father disapproved. Among other casual jobs, she worked as an assistant nurse in the sanatorium of the SS for 2 years and unsuccessfully tried to find an apprenticeship as a nurse, after which she worked as a dairy helper. Quoted below is Irma Grese testimony under direct examination about her background. I was born on October 7th, 1923. In 1938, I left the elementary school and worked for 6 months on agricultural jobs at a farm, after which I worked in a shop in Leuken for 6 months. When I was 15, I went to a hospital in Hohenlohen, where I stayed for 2 years. I tried to become a nurse, but the labor exchange would not allow that and sent me to work in a dairy in Fürstenberg. In July 1942, I tried again to become a nurse, but the labor exchange sent me to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Although I protested against it, I stayed there until March 1943, when I went to Birkenau camp in Auschwitz. I remained in Auschwitz until January 1945. Having completed her training in March 1943, Grese was transferred as a female guard to Auschwitz, and by the end of that year was senior supervisor, the second highest ranking woman at the camp, in charge of around 30,000 Jewish female prisoners. In January 1945, Grese briefly returned to Ravensbrück before ending her wartime career at Bergen-Belsen as a work service manager from March to April. She was captured by the British on 17 April 1945, together with other SS personnel who did not flee war crimes. Grese was among the 45 people accused of war crimes at the Belsen trial. She was tried over the first period of the trials, September 17th to November 17th, 1945, and was represented by Major L. Cranfield. The trials were conducted under British military law in Lüneburg, and the charges derived from the Geneva Convention of 1929 regarding the treatment of prisoners. The accusations against her centered on her ill treatment and murder of those imprisoned at the camps, including setting dogs on inmates, shootings, and sadistic beatings with a whip. Survivors provided detailed testimony of murders, tortures, and other cruelties, especially towards women, in which Grese engaged during her years at Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. They testified to acts of sadism, beatings, and arbitrary shootings of prisoners, savaging of prisoners by her trained and allegedly half-starved dogs, and to her selecting prisoners for gas chambers. Grese was reported to have habitually worn heavy boots and carried a whip and a pistol. Witnesses testified that she used both physical and emotional methods to torture the camp's inmates and enjoyed shooting prisoners in cold blood. They also claimed that she beat some women to death and whipped others using a plated whip. Grese inspired virulent hatred in prisoner Olga Lengyel, who in her memoir, 5 Chimneys, wrote that selections in the women's camp were made by SS Officerin Elizabeth Hasse and Irma Grese. The latter was visibly pleased by the terror her presence inspired in the women at roll call. She had a penchant for selecting not only the sick and the weak, but any woman who had retained vestiges of her former beauty. Moreover, Lengel observes, Grese had several lovers among the SS in the camp, including Joseph Mengele. After Grese strong-armed the inmate surgeon at the infirmary into performing her illegal abortion, Irma disclosed that she planned a career in the movies after the war. Olga felt that Irma's meticulous grooming, custom-fitted clothes, and overuse of perfume were part of a deliberate act of sadism among the ragged women prisoners. After a 53-day trial, Grese was sentenced to hang. Execution. Grese and 10 others, 8 men and 2 other women, Juana Bormann and Elizabeth Volkenrath, were convicted for crimes against humanity in both Auschwitz and Belsen, and then sentenced to death. As the verdicts were read, Grese was the only prisoner to remain defiant. Her subsequent appeal was rejected. In Nazi She-Devils, the Mirror reports, despite being dressed in drab prison garb, the vain Grese, dubbed the beautiful beast by inmates, used rags to put ringlets in her hair. And the night before her execution, Grese laughed and sang Nazi songs with fellow SS torturer Elizabeth Volkenrath. On Thursday, December 13, 1945, in Hamelin jail, Grese was led to the gallows. The women were hanged singly first, and then the men in pairs. Regimental Sergeant Major O'Neill assisted the noted British executioner Albert Pierrepoint. We climbed the stairs to the cells where the condemned were waiting. A German officer at the door, leading to the corridor flung open the door, and we filed past a row of faces and into the execution chamber. The officer stood at attention. Brigadier Peyton Walsh stood with his wristwatch raised. He gave me the signal, and a sigh of released breath was audible in the chamber. I walked into the corridor. Irma Grese, I called. The German guards quickly closed all grills on 12 of the inspection holes and opened one door. Irma Grese stepped out. The cell was far too small for me to go inside, and I had to pinion her in the corridor. Follow me, I said in English, and O'Neill repeated the order in German. At 9:34 a.m., she walked into the execution chamber, gazed for a moment at the officials standing round it, then walked onto the center of the trap, where I had made a chalk mark. She stood on this mark very firmly, and as I placed a white cap over her head, she said in her languid voice, "Schneller." English translation, quickly. The drop crashed down, and the doctor followed me into the pit and pronounced her dead. After 20 minutes, the body was taken down and placed in a coffin ready for burial. Famed British naval aviator Eric Brown, who is fluent in German and who interviewed certain Nazis for the Nuremberg trials, has described Irma Grese as the worst human being I have ever met. Dramatizations. Angel. A Nightmare in 2 Acts is a drama by playwright Joe David Smyer based on the life and execution of Irma Grese and Holocaust survivor Olga Lengel. First staged in 1987, it has been produced at many regional colleges. In September 2006, it had its professional debut at the New City Stage Company in Philadelphia.